Welcome to another amazing Western Star podcast here on a WIUR radio station channel on YouTube. Again, it's a pleasure to be here as usual. Just kidding, we're back. Uh, Again, those of you who aren't new, uh, I am HJW Hunter James, and I am here to tell you all the biggest updates in movies and some of my reviews that I checked out this weekend. We got a lot to talk about. Is a little bit more into the discussion of is the that's the highest we can go. Is the Exorcist worth $400 million after 2 weeks of box office results? We'll see on that. Taylor Swift's new Eras Tour movie dominates the box office in glorious fashion, although some people think of it too much as a cult. I will show you why. The Marvels is expected to have one of the lowest grossing openings in the Marvel universe on opening weekend. Tracking is not particularly high, and it could be one of the lowest opening for a Marvel film ever. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie is only a couple days away. It's only 11 days away, and this new update might concern many people's opinions on the film and might change them. And we got some Peacock movies to review. We also got Semetary Bloodlines on Paramount Plus. We have all of that, and we are going to talk about it today. If you are new, thank you. Join, subscribe to see. I do this every 2 o'clock to 3. Try to get an hour of content in. Also, like other content, a lot of people support others in hopes that this can continue on and I can further develop into a channel, hopefully in the future. That's me. So let's get into the topics, shall we? And let's start out with a little bit of a backwards trend, a little bit of a back in time, shall we? Last week, I talked about the Exorcist Believer, and I said I didn't like it. I thought the movie was crap. I thought it was crap. I thought I didn't like it. I thought it was really not good. I thought it was better than Halloween Ends. But I actually thought that Halloween Kills is a much better movie than this. And it opened pretty low, actually really lower than the Halloween trilogy did. Um, and it managed to squeak out 27 or 26 million dollars opening weekend last week. The actual estimates, the results came out. It was under 27. It was actually 26 million dollars worldwide opening weekend, and it actually in the United States, and it made 44 million worldwide. Currently now in its second weekend, it is decreased to 58% in now has made $84 million worldwide, which is pacing a little bit higher than Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends ended its theatrical run with $105 million. This movie, it looks like it can maybe do better than that by a lot. So, obviously I gave my review and I gave my thoughts on it. I said I didn't like it. I thought it was a terrible movie. I thought that the creepy girls were really good and the cinematography and the score was actually really good. I've been listening to the score. It's actually really good too. But overall, it just didn't really feel like they had anything. I thought that the team behind the Halloween movies, great team behind the first movie. I thought they were a really bad choice. And this got me thinking, why did Universal spend 400 million effing dollars on a franchise to be brought back to start a new trilogy and to have the first movie in the trilogy this shallow, lackluster, non-scary mess with no real lack of originality? Why did they shell out $400 million? Well, I'll tell you why. Actually, because they're desperate. They want to have a new horror franchise on their ass, and so Halloween's down and out. And everybody says our horror movies are decent. Blumhouse has made some decently good horror movies. The Black Phone was amazing. And they obviously have Five Nights at Freddy's, which they're gonna have. They're signed on. Matthew Lillard has said he is signed on to do a new a second and third film, so maybe that's going to be a new trilogy. But um, they're desperate. They want to have all these properties and all this money in their bank, and so they shell out $400 million. They give it. They hope to buy it, the Exorcist property, and they did. And what an awful way to start. Now, there's a couple reasons as to why this movie didn't open to near the projections of $30 million or maybe more. There's a lot, and why to me, it's a waste of 400 million effing dollars. I'm not going to swear, but it's a waste of $400 million when you can have a movie. You can give it back to Warner. You can give the Warner Brothers the rights again, and they can make a better film or give it to a different team. So what? There's a lot of reasons. So let's talk about some of the reasons. Number one, it just didn't look that good. It looked creepy, but that's always a good thing. Like it's creepy looking, but that's what they all say about these horror trailers. And then the movie comes out and it's pure crap. So what do you think? Well, the movie just it looked like it belonged on streaming. I'm gonna say it after watching the movie and watching the trailers. I can tell you that this movie would have been better if it was just a streaming film only on Peacock. If or maybe if the movie was released in theaters and on Peacock, that would have been a whole lot better. Because this is a movie that guarantees that Peacock rate. They did not have clear faith in this movie because if they don't have faith in the Halloween kills, if they don't have faith in Halloween ends, and they don't have faith in the Five Nights at Freddy's, which hasn't come out yet, but let's be honest, if a movie's debuting day to day on Peacock, streaming, and in theaters, it's not good look. Then I can tell you, it's not good. So, but Disney Plus has been doing good. They did great 2 years ago. You don't see that happening anymore. Oh yeah, because we're done with the pandemic. We're done. So why is Universal doing that? Well, because they don't think that the movie's going to be as popular as it is. But it's already that movie, that FNAF movie's already doing really well. The seats are being taken. It's going to make a lot of money. So why wasn't this movie the one to be on Peacock? Why was the Five Nights at Freddy's movie the one, and why couldn't that have been straight to theaters? Well, because franchises need to make money. And so they shelled this movie out, and they debuted it in theaters. The trailers kept premiering, and it got under my skin. Another reason as to why is because, well, who's that really the Halloween movies left a bad taste in people's mouth, and when they saw that David Gordon Green was directing this movie, they didn't really think he had the balls to do it. The balls and the balls. The balls to do it. They didn't think he had the balls to do it. I mean, look at the 2018 Halloween, which is such a revolutionary piece of horror, in my opinion. It is one of the best horror films I have seen in my years of being on Earth. And of course, a year later, we had to get the announcement of, well, what would happen if the movie franchise continued? And so they had to shell out two sequels that clearly were not as good as the last movie. In fact, they weren't even close. And they debuted in theaters and streaming, but they did remarkably well in the box office opening weekend. And then you look at the weekend drops and the overall numbers, and just come under the original film. It's just not a good look. Now, maybe nobody knew this guy was directing the Exorcist movie. Maybe nobody cared that he was directing it. And they were like, all right, well, I got faith in what he's going to do with this movie. But when you have this guy who actually went criticism because some people didn't like how his Halloween movie ended, his Halloween Ends movie happened, there's something a little bit fishy there. Or I think the biggest reason is who cares? Who cares? There's a new Exorcist movie out. Who cared? No, I don't think anybody cares that there's a new film out. I Was there so much hype that this had to be on the top 10 most anticipated films? Was there hype that this movie had to be regarded as the biggest movie event of the fall? Was there? Because I don't think so. I don't think there was. And if there is, then I'm just clueless. Because nobody really cared. And the numbers show it made only $26 million. If people showed up, then it would have made like Halloween of $40 million or 50 or 70. It would have, if people cared, this movie would have made triple the amount it made. But nobody cared because they don't want another film because it's too good of an original. The It movie, the reason why I think the It movie made so much money is because the last movie really the original It wasn't really great. And then they released this movie and it's absolutely spectacular. It makes all this type of money for great reason. So, and you look at this movie now and it's like the second weekend drop is was not 60%. It wasn't. It was 58%, which is normally it's not great, but it's not like over 60 million. It's not over 60%, which is like really bad. So again, you got to think like why did they spend so much money? Because they want to have another franchise so they can be like, "Oh, we're going to get so many new people who haven't watched The Exorcist before in the theater and hopefully that will get people to watch our film." And then you look at the reviews and then it took the momentum out. It took out the momentum. Much like Indiana Jones with those reviews when they came out, it took the momentum out. I think this movie would have had momentum as the days progressed to the opening day of the film, and then those reviews came out and just absolutely tanked what I would consider to be probably a movie that could have made 35 to 40 million dollars but only made 26, which is not really good considering the fact that they shelled out 400 million dollars. Well, question is for anybody else out there, was it worth it? Did you see it? I know I have, and I didn't think it was good, but don't take my word for it. You do you. I had a friend ask me, probably going to try to see the new Exorcist movie. And I said, well, I thought it was bad, but I'm not telling you to not see it. So I'm not telling you to not see it. Go out and check it out. All right. With that down, we're going to move on to Miss Taylor Swift. God, I hate her. I don't here's the thing. I don't like I'm a Giants fan, so the NFL, there's a whole different side plot to that, which I think Cameron will one day talk about. Or if he hasn't talked about it yet, then he should. But Taylor Swift is breaking the world. Her Eras tour was big. And the fans, I'm gonna say I don't like the fans. I think there's some fans out there that are like, okay, they're normal, and then there's like the really, really cringy, culty fans. That's like it's that scene in Midsummer, with the whole the cult just like dancing. That's them. They're creepy, they're weird, they're cringy. That's me. And she had a movie coming out this weekend that I won't tell you right now. I was never gonna see this thing. I was never gonna see this because it just is. It's stupid. Why are you paying so money? Well, actually, it's better because like the concert tickets I heard went for like $800, so this is like cheap. But people knew this movie was going to sell out, but how much money will it make? And a lot of people were looking at, well, this movie could be, and that's because the Exorcist Believer actually got moved up a week because of this, and they said, oh, let's just put it here and not care about the Exorcist Believer. Well, we got to move it up a week. Sorry, maybe that's why the movie. They could have waited another week for the reviews to come out, and they would have been crap. There you go. But let's see. So they were saying, well, they're gonna project the new opening weekend record of October, and they were gonna be like, oh, the movie might make over $100 million, which will break the October opening weekend record from Joker. And sadly, it didn't do that, which I'm happy, but it did make it did open number one this weekend with a staggering $93 million. It is now the second highest opening of October ever. You think about it, you want to look at October movies that have opened in the past. Let's take a look at, hopefully if I can find this graphic. Um if I can. Let's take a look at what are the top 10 biggest opening weekends in October. So, and these are in no particular order. These are the movies that opened. So the number one movie, Joker, with $96.2 million. Again, it is now currently the number one biggest opening for an October film. And then you got Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour with 96 or 93, but this site has 96, so estimated. And then Venom, Let There Be Carnage with $90 million. Venom, which originally was the opening weekend record at $80 million. And actually, before that, it was originally Gravity that took home the number one opening in October with $55.7 million. Then, 2 weeks later, after Venom premiered in 2018, you got to go to Halloween, which opened to $76 million. So at the time, was the number two biggest opening for an October movie opening weekend. And then you got Black Adam with $67 million. Again, we know how that movie went. Gravity with 55.7. Number 8, No Time to Die, which came out in 2021 with 55.2. That movie had so many release dates. The Martian, directed by Ridley Scott, managed to make $54 million. And then Paranormal Activity 3, which managed to make over $52 million. So when you're talking about, and this, I think this is the only month that doesn't have a movie that opened to over $100 million. Well, actually, no, because now you have January, no movie has opened to over $100 million. March, March has had that. July, August, I'm assuming. Oh no, the Suicide Squad. Okay. So September, I'm assuming it's it. Yep. So aside from, well, June has that one. May, I'm assuming. Yep. February, Black Panther, right? Yeah, Black Panther with 202. So aside from January and August, oh no, January, aside from January, October, and of course, I mean, I think Spider-Man No Way Home with 260 million in December. So aside from the fact that January hasn't had a movie open to over $100 million, October hasn't had a movie to open over to $100 million. Now, hold on. If Five Nights at Freddy's is to shatter expectations, it will be the only movie to open to $100 million or more. And if it beats out Joker, it will be the biggest opening for an October movie of all time. That will be amazing. But you have to look at, okay, what does this do for the industry? Like, why does Taylor Swift opening to $96 million? What does that do? Well, that technically means that the fall box office is kind of saved because it wasn't looking good at all through the month of September. Didn't look good in the first week of October. And then you look at this week and it's like, oh, well, they weren't going to have anything. If this movie were to never come out, the number one movie of the week would have been Exorcist with $11 million, which would have been bad. Would have been really bad. But we're glad we have Taylor Swift. Are we? Are we all glad we have Taylor Swift to help pump up the box office? Aren't we so happily, spectacularly glad? Are we? No, really? Yeah, we're not. But whatever. $96 million, and the movie might have a interesting drop, but it depends on how much Killers of the Flower Moon is going to open to. It depends. All right. With that down, let's talk about the Marvels because we have some unfortunate news. Well, for those of you who aren't aware, tickets are on sale right now for the Marvels, which um which is great, but here's the thing. A lot of people have not said this movie looks good. A lot of people have not been excited for the Marvels because number of reasons. Well, actually, let's get into the topic. So, the box office has officially come out and projections have already been released for the Marvels. And I can say they're not good. In fact, they are I would go so far to say is catastrophic because we have the projections for the box office are 72% worse than Quantumania. And remember, that movie opened to $106 million. So, the latest box office projections for Marvels indicate a disappointing outlook, with an expected domestic opening of $75 million or $50 to $75 million, less than half of Captain Marvel's $153 million opening weekend in 2019. The pre-sales for the Marvels are significantly behind movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which came out in May, and Ant-Man and the Lost Quantumania, which came out in February. Both movies opening over $100 million. While lackluster box office predictions are becoming more frequent for the MCU, it is unlikely to have a significant impact on the franchise's overall success, considering other revenue streams like merchandise and streaming releases. All right. This is not good. In fact, this is like I said, catastrophic, and they're projecting a domestic total range of 121 to $189 million. Captain Marvel went and opened years ago in 2019 of March to $153 million. And that movie, I think this is a typo, but if I'm understanding correctly, that movie managed to shell out $426 million domestically, which was insane. It was insane. And it held the number one spot for 2 weeks. Can you believe that? The opening day of Captain Marvel was $61 million. Can you imagine if that movie made if the Marvels makes less than the opening day of the first film? That would be really bad. Now, it's even worse because the box office or the budget for the first Marvel movie was 152 to 175 million dollars. And here we go talking about that big budget monstrosity talk because the budget of this movie is there's two budgets. The gross the actual gross budget of this movie is $274.8 million, and the net budget is 219, which means you are looking at a movie that needs to make around 500 to 600 million dollars, which means you're not going to want $75 million. You want to have more than that. You want to make sure international box office is a success. You want to make sure domestic box office is really good. You don't want to have a low opening weekend. And if this movie does, this will be a flop, a flippin' failure. So I don't know what to say other than let's just hope this movie does well, and let's make sure everyone goes see it because I don't want a Marvel movie to fail. I don't want anything to fail. Even some of the movies I don't like, I don't want them to fail. They made their money. It's just why? What is happening to the Marvel we know and love? I don't know. Question is, well, what do you think? Because I'm curious to know how some of the people here are going to go out and check this movie out because pre-sales are already out, and like I said, it I wouldn't be surprised if none of you even knew the tickets were on sale, which is crazy. But next up, moving on, we have so on the news, my beard. Let's get into the next topic, shall we? And that is this: Five Nights at Freddy's is only 11 days away, and we're finally getting it in theaters and on Peacock streaming. So we're only 10 days away, technically, from if you want to count Thursday official previews in theaters, but we are officially 11 days away from one of the biggest movies of the year, possibly of the fall, and there's been a lot of controversy to different reshoots and scripts being torn around, to different directors and Warner Brothers having to drop out of this movie so Universal can take the rights to it and Blumhouse, and then release them telling us, hey, we're going to release this movie on October 27th in theaters and streamable on Peacock. To the trailers having a lot of big views and a lot of anticipation, to the movie's tickets going on sale and having interesting pre-sales, to this now. Apparently the review embargo is not dropping until the movie comes out, which is the day of. Now, normally a movie was supposed to lift its embargo a couple days before the movie comes out, maybe like 4 or 5, or if it's a big one, then like a couple weeks. No, no, they're not doing that. They're not doing that because this movie's streaming, so they're gonna wait for people to watch it on streaming to check it out. Which is why I bought my subscription because I do not trust Five Nights at Freddy's. I never trusted it. I never trusted it from the beginning because I said this movie was a rush production. They announced in February that they were releasing the film, and then they released after the movie was finished in March or April, so 2 months production, that we're going to release it on Peacock. It's listen, you may hate me on that, but look, we live in a world where stuff like this, it's a problem. And obviously, I know there's a lot of people that don't want to be upset, but like, listen, I was really excited for what was it? For Halloween Ends. I was actually excited for Halloween Ends when it came out, and then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna put it on Peacock." And I was like, "Oh, you're damaging the box office again, Universal." And the movie was bad. I tuned out. At that point, I zoned out of that franchise, and I said, and that's why my optimism with Exorcist Believer got worse. But the problem here with Five Nights at Freddy's is that this is a game that came out. If you think about it recently, like 2014, this isn't like an old 1990 property. This isn't like an old like movie that's being rebooted that's based off of a video game that came out in the early 2000s and 1990s. This is a video game that came out in 2014. And 9 years later, we're getting a live action adaptation of it. And I just think that the trailers have been very silly, except for the last trailer that I thought was really good. But again, it's always nervous to go into a movie with this, knowing that you have like, okay, the budget is really low, so this movie might make a lot of money opening weekend. But you have to look at the other factors here. They're putting this on streaming the exact same day, so clips are going to be released the day the movie comes out on YouTube. So you better watch for your social media and not look at anything when that movie comes out. I know I won't. You have to also pray. You have to pray that the movie gets decent reviews because you don't have any other movie coming out the weekend of the 3rd of November. So this movie can be number 1 for 2 days for 2 weeks straight or not. Like, we don't know. It all is it's all shady, it's all rocky, it's all untrustworthy. This is an untrustworthy film, in my opinion. I am very nervous to go into this movie, to pay like $20, so like $30 if I wanted to see this with my father. So like if I wanted to see this with friends, like I'm nervous to spend like $15 on a movie that I could have easily watched for free on streaming. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. I'm not stupid. I'm not saying everybody else is stupid, but I am not stupid. I'm not gonna be duped a 3rd time, actually a 4th time, because Firestarter was a terrible movie, and that was on Peacock as well, and I didn't see it in theaters. I watched it on free for Amazon Prime, but I knew if I watched it in theaters, I would have gotten my money back because it was a bad movie. So I'm not gonna be duped a 4th time. A 4th time. I'm sorry. I actually am smart. I'm not going to spend money. And also, I'm not going to deal with annoying people in the theater for a horror film. I'm just not going to do that. I, I'm not going to be stupid. I have a brain. I'm not going to go to these theaters and be like, oh, I have to tell these people to shut up in the front row and get off their phones when I can just be in my aura, Eura, or Ahora, whatever that Aurora or your something. It was from Total Drama. Your aura is very something like that. I'm gonna be in there. I'm gonna be in my room. I'm gonna be in the living room watching this on the TV because I don't trust it. I don't trust this movie. So the review embargo is bad enough. If they don't want you to be like, hey, fan movie people out there, we're gonna wait until the movie comes out so you can't say negative things about the movie early. They know that the movie sucks. Don't be surprised if I give this a negative review, and don't be surprised if the reviews come out and they're crap. Don't be surprised because I'm going to tell people. I knew it from the beginning. I knew it from the start. This doesn't surprise me. I'm not stupid. I knew this was going to be a crap movie. And when people tell me, well, it was for the fans. Yeah, it's for the fans, but like what, at what cost? At what, hold on. My strains. At what cost? At what cost are we going to have to know that I'm not going to be duped again? So again, and if a movie just doesn't look good, I'll check it out on streaming. I'm not going to do it opening weekend. That's just me. That's who I am. So let's leave all that in the past. Again, so for the people out there listening, what do you think about this? Are you going to check this movie out on theaters, or are you going to wait to stream it? Whatever you think. Let me know if you see me walking by. I'm the one with the glasses on like this. Whatever. All right, let's actually get into the movie reviews, the quickie reviews, whatever you say. We got 5 of them. So I'm going to do this in 15 minutes actually, which actually I'm going to start at 36 minutes. I'm going to start at 36 minutes on here. And actually I'm going to start on the timer because it's a little bit delayed. And so I have 4 movies that I streamed on Peacock, 1 on Paramount Plus. We're going to review all of them in 5 minutes. So I'm going to wait for that to start at 2. There we go. There we go. Okay. Let's get started with the reviews, starting with the movie called Sick on Peacock. This is actually a Peacock original movie that was not released in theaters that I finally watched. It released in January, and the essential story of this is it's in midst of the COVID pandemic, and there's a little bit of a killer on the loose. It's a little bit of a social satire on the COVID slasher movie where these girls are having a good weekend at a cabin, and there's a slasher, there's a killer on the loose, and it's a lot of craziness going on. And it's written by Kevin Williamson, who, if you aren't familiar with what he does, he technically does the what is it? Um oh, the Scream movies. I just realized I thought 250, 3 minutes for each review. I'll for 5 minutes for each review. I'll maybe go over the time. Yeah, 25. So, um, overall, from what I watched on this movie, this is a very like a self-aware movie. Like, there's some moments in this movie that you make you go, that was stupid. That was very silly. But you know what? I accepted it. I accepted the silliness. I accepted the overall tone of this movie because it knows what it is. It's a great slasher movie. I think the performances in this film are really good. I bet sometimes they're a little bit too over the top. Like the reveal for the killers or the reveal for the killer, whatever the bad guys, it is a little bit over the top when they get talked about. But I think the cinematography and the way they use the horror elements, there's a lot of nice, interesting camera angles that they use with the one takes sometimes. And then, you see something in the background, and it's not like the jump scares actually work, which is shocking because I thought jump scares were never going to work. Um, but I think they did a really good job, and I'm kind of happy that they did they did a slasher movie that's not stupid. Like that's not fully stupid. Because you can look at this movie and be like, "Oh, well, I thought it was pretty lame. The dialogue was really cheesy." But honestly, I think that works now. I think it is a very short movie. It's actually really short. It's actually an hour and 23 minutes, which is surprisingly very short for a horror movie. And that leaves me into the negatives. I think if this were to be just a tad bit longer, like another 10 minutes longer to explain a little bit of backstory, because we get a little bit of a twist, and it's like the twist really kind of made sense, but doesn't, you know? And it makes you think weird about the movie, but not in weird where it's like, oh, I didn't like this movie. It just kind of is like, huh, that's that's it. Okay. And then the movie kind of ends abruptly, which is just like a waste, I would say. But I thought that what they did with the movie was pretty nice. You got the performances really good, direction, writing. It is a smart movie. It knows what it is, and it stays like that. A couple jokes, couple moments that are really really dumb and stupid. The villains I thought were really cartoonish sometimes. But overall, I enjoy this movie. Um, Overall, I give this movie a B, just a rating. So a B. All right. Next up, we have a movie that I thought I would never watch in my life this year, but it got streamed on Peacock, and I was like, "Do I watch it?" Yes, I do, because I have to do this because I like watching movies. I like it for you and everybody else out there. I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I watched it, and I really wish I hadn't watched it because oh my god, this movie's awful. This movie's awful. So the story of this one is we have Christopher Robin. He used to play with Pooh and friends, and then he kind of got old and grew up, and he went to go to college, which is kind of weird that you would be playing with these animals when you're in high school. Kind of would make sense if you left them in middle school, but whatever, that's me. But he goes off to leave to college, and the animals start getting feral. They start acting weird, and they kill Eeyore. They eat Eeyore, and they're like, "We're never gonna talk again." Which is kind of this movie's way of saying, "Well, we have a cheap ass budget, so we're not gonna allow the characters to talk." So then he returns with his wife, and stuff hits the fan really quickly. But then we get actually our real characters, these group of girls that are going to this cabin for the weekend, and Pooh and Piglet are there, and you can tell right away this is cheap to cheap to cheap. This is a cheap production. It's not CGI characters. They're literally big old dudes in costumes, and you can tell, like, sometimes you would see the Pooh mask, and then you see, like, a little bit of skin here that's, like, it's just hanging there, and then the gloves, you see kinda like the hands, the skin. It's lazy. This is a lazy movie, which is weird because a movie with that, let me just a movie with that those ratings, you think it's gonna be good? Hell no, it's not. It's not good. And you can bet your ass this movie profited because it made over the budget. Of course it did. A lot. $5 million worldwide to be exact. It didn't make that over its opening weekend. It didn't make that on its opening day. It didn't make that in previews. That's worldwide. And it was cheap. And guess what? There's a sequel. What's bad about the well? There's a lot of things bad about the movie. Well, let's just get into it. The premise, very effing stupid. It's just stupid. This is a stupid movie that again is under the it's a good runtime. It's an hour and 27 minutes. But by like the end of it, I was bored. Again, it's a short movie, but I'm bored watching it. In terms of a slasher film, like the horror aspect of this movie is it's just crap. It's crap, and it just doesn't work. None of it works. You watch this movie because you want to see a slasher movie. It takes about 30 minutes to get into the actual slashing part because there's kind of like a backstory, but that's not even like the slasher sort of aspect. It's just like, oh, a quick kill with a chain over a neck. It takes 30 minutes to get into the actual mayhem, and it's not good. You can tell like the lighting's off. it's all off. The acting's bad. It's just, oh, who are these people? You don't know anybody on this. This production just looks off. The plot, the dialogue, the script. The script is, oh my god, it is so, it's poorly written, everything, and the movie just kind of ends. And some of the CGI budget that they had with like some dude's skin gets ripped off and you can tell like, oh, it's digital effects. And then this girl gets like thrown into a tree grinder, you know, when they make the branches into wood and they spews out, the blood dripping out of it was really poorly horrendous CGI. And I struggled to find anything about this movie that is remotely decent. But I couldn't. I couldn't. We're going to get into the next review. This is an F. It is not a good movie at all. Do not watch this at all. Next up, we have Polite, right? We have Polite Society. Polite Society. Again, another Peacock movie. And this movie we have I actually have to look at the character's name. I'm sorry. Polite Society movie. All right, so we got crud. So we have we have these two sisters in London, Britain. They're British Pakistani teenager. One of them's Ria Khan, and one of them's what's the other one? Lena. So pretty much in this movie, we have two sisters. One of them wants to be a stunt woman, and the other is an artist. And she meets this guy at this party who is the best person in the world. He's a great one. But then her sister Ria is like, I don't know, this guy is a little bit sketchy. Her mother's weird too, and it's kind of a mix on UK, Bollywood, American mayhem, and it's this is directed by Nida Manzoor. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not butchering anything. Hopefully, this is her feature film directorial debut. So this is like the big thing. This is like her first movie, and I thought this was pretty good. I like this movie a lot. It's fun. It is very very fun. It blends a lot of Bollywood kind of tropes and British movie tropes and mixes them into like this American classic, and I thought it worked really well. I think the thing that to me that gets me is the dynamic between Rita or Ria and Lena, their relationship with each other, and having to let go and allow somebody that you love to do these other things and maybe give up on what they like to do other things, and it's hard. So this movie really connects with you if you have that kind of relationship with a sibling, and I thought they did a really good job with it. um the family dynamic with the sisters is really good. I think the performances are really good. We have the girl from Barbie, reporter Barbie, and I think she's in Umbrella Academy, who I thought was really good. Or no, not Umbrella Academy. Is it Doom Patrol or but I don't know. I don't watch those shows. I don't watch them, but I thought they were really good. Then we move on to the action. It's filmed really good. I like the action. It's a tightly paced movie. It's very good paced. The um the action scenes are edited really well. The characters are hilarious. There's a lot of funny jokes to me that worked in this movie. I think the issues that I think ran to me specifically were its villains are very unfulfilling. Like, like the villain part of this movie is very unfulfilling. And when we get into like the final 10 minutes, it's kind of like the movie ends like that. And it's like, it's fine, but I wanted more. I wanted more out of this. So I you may get what you get. You may like what you like. If you like this type of stuff, you're gonna love it. If you don't like this type of stuff, you're gonna hate it. I thought that overall the dynamic between the sisters was great. I thought the writing was super clever. Its emotional grasp between the sisters, I thought, worked in the best way possible. And overall, I had a really good time with this movie. So I'm gonna rate this higher than Sick. Overall, we're gonna give Polite Society. I'm gonna give it this right here a B plus. Thought it was pretty good, pretty good. And now we get to our last two movies before we end the stream. First one is Hypnotic. This is a movie directed by Robert Rodriguez that was an action spy movie thriller that came out in May that I never checked out. And in this movie we have who is it? Agent Rourke, played by Ben Affleck, who is a police officer, and he kind of gets into this in bank heist thing where this guy tells people this like a sentence, and then something happens. They either listen or they don't, and he wonders where's his daughter because they say something about his daughter, and then he goes to these other people to get help, and that doesn't work. So then they go across the a globe to find these other people, and uh, it feels like I'm being lazy right now, but trust me, the movie, this is one of the most confusing plots I've ever seen. I mean, one of the most confusing movies I have ever seen and watched. I was so puzzled as to what was going on in this movie. All I knew is that Ben Affleck had a daughter who went missing, and now he's a police officer. He gets into an altercation with William Fichtner, who is this bad guy who has these minions or this ability to tell people what to do with their mind. I just I got confused. This is a bad movie. This is a confusing mess with very little charm. I think that it's very stale. I think it's very boring. I think that the action is not fulfilling. It, it would be one thing if the movie was boring, but there were some moments of good action. And there's the opening bank heist scene, which has some action. I think that's really cool. Other than that, I found it very hard to follow along with any of the characters in this movie. I think some of the characters are weak. I think that is it's R rated. There's barely enough violence, and the twists and turns as the second half progresses confused the living crap out of me. I could not believe what was going on. And it's weird because Robert Rodriguez is known for directing these interesting movies. Alita Battle Angel, the Spy Kids movies. You know, those are wacky movies with bad CGI, but Alita Battle Angel is a movie with great CGI. You wonder, like, is this guy like okay? Because this was not edited really good. I thought some of the special effects in the movie didn't look as good either. I think you, you could have had more casting because Ben Affleck's okay, but Alice Braga and William Fichtner, they're good in the movie, but you just don't offer. They're reading a script that's lazy and very convoluted and very boring, and you just don't care. You don't care about this movie. It's very unsatisfying. It's a very confusing film. I might even rate it lower than what I'm about to rate it or give it. But again, there are other movies I would give a lower grade to than this. So I'm gonna give Hypnotic a D. And then finally, we move on to the only Paramount Plus movie that I watched this weekend, and that is Pet Semetary Bloodlines. And I'm going to tell you right now again, I thought the movie was bad. This is a weird weekend. Only two movies I thought were really decent. One movie I thought was really good, and the three movies I thought were crap. One movie I thought was pure. There we go. I muted myself, but this was not a really good week for movies or weekend. But what? So what did I? What about Pet Semetary Bloodlines was not good? Well, it's a prequel to the reboot that came out in 2019. So if you haven't seen the reboot, you're not missing out because this is a prequel. So here you go. So Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, what happens is that this couple, they're ready to leave Ludlow and they're ready to go, and then something happens, they get into an accident, and then one of their neighbor's dog is like in the middle of the street. And so the dude's girlfriend, Judd, his girlfriend gets attacked by the dog and he has to go to the hospital. So he has to stay in the town, and he recognizes there's something off with one of the neighbors, Timmy, who he used to hang out with his other friend, Miguel. And there's something off about him. He returned from Vietnam after serving, but there's something a little off. And sometimes dead is better. Sometimes resting a franchise is better. Stop making these unnecessary movies, especially one that's streaming on Paramount Plus. Because let's face it, some of the Paramount Plus original movies aren't good. I haven't watched Infinite yet, but I haven't heard great things about it. It's a weird. It's weird. This movie thinks that gore is a better substitute for horror. I don't think so. I think horror is a good substitute for horror, if you want my opinion. I think the biggest problem that Pet Cemetery Bloodlines has, that I think, whatever, is it's just an unnecessary prequel. Yes, it's always interesting to see the old character with the knowledge get a little bit of a backstory. That being said, I think the backstory is completely useless. It's devoid of any like atmosphere, any emotion. Like it's just it's just poor. It's a poor man's work, poor man's job. I was just like, and again, this is another movie that's under an hour, under 90 minutes long. It's like 2 hour. It's like an hour and 27 minutes. So it's very short. But there are these unnecessary sequences that are just like, why? Why is this in the movie? There's a whole. It's not like the type of movie where you're just like, yeah, I'm just bored because it's nothing's happening. You're just kind of like, what am I doing with my life? I don't know. I'm just here telling you this movie wasn't good. I think the performances are decent, but it really comes to the scare factor, the script, the characters, how it ends off, how it is like a prequel to the remake. It's not that. It's not that at all. So overall, I'm gonna give it the same grade. I'm gonna give it the same grade, a D. The Pet Cemetery Bloodlines was not good. So yeah, actually, I think that's it. That's the stream. That is it. That is all I have today. Next weekend, we're gonna have some more, hopefully, some more reviews, some more topics. Not a lot to talk about. And as the days go by. So thank you so much for watching and tuning into this video or this stream, this podcast. My name is Hunter West, IHJW, and I will see you all next Monday. Signing off.